Certain topics always come up in a first talk of a retreat, and they concern authority. Maybe even before that, listening. What is listening? How do we listen? Is there only one form of listening? Namely, our conditioned ways of listening, and can we look at our conditioned ways of listening? Become aware of it? And wonder whether there is an open way of listening, not totally controlled by our conditioning. We'll talk more about that, so it doesn't just remain words. And we will talk about our relationship with each other. What is it based on? What is the quality of it? Also, can that change? From being based on imagery to being with each other, at least at times, without imagery? Seeing the images and what they do to relationship, becoming aware of it, as all I'm using seeing, listening, becoming aware of, attending to, almost synonymously. So on a warm, buzzing, creaking morning, Sunday morning, what is our quality of listening to a talk like this? To the buzzing of insects, the chirping of birds. Movement of the window shades, if that's what it is. And how does one listen to talks which one has done all of one's life in one form or another? Admonishing talks, educative talks, sermonizing by parents, teachers, priests, ministers. Has our listening apparatus been shaped by how we have been talked to? How we have been admonished to listen, or told that we're not listening? Being talked to, has that always meant some kind of space between us, a separating space? The one who talks to me and me who has to listen to what he or she says to me either has to listen, or I want to listen because I want to find out more. But maybe not to mix those two up right now, just to look at and listen inwardly to this having learned to be talked to, or talked at, sermonized at, to be told how to behave, how not to behave, what's good for me, what I should not do. has the whole listening program been shaped accordingly, so that today, in listening to a talk such as this, I already expect to hear what I should do and what I shouldn't do, what I should be like and what I should not be like, what I should cultivate and what I should rather get rid of or drop. Are we shaped to listen in that way? And in other ways? And can it be that whatever way we have been shaped to listen, we hear and record what someone says or said, which may not be what is actually said or talked about? I mention this particularly because so many times people say to me, you have said that we should not have thoughts. We should not be so self-centered. We should drop ego. We should not have images. So can we, from the very outset, it's the very first topic we're looking at and expanding on, going into. The very first one is, we're not talking about what we should be like or shouldn't be like. I'm not intending to say do this and don't do that, even though I may say that at times. I'm also conditioned. I don't mean to say it. And by and large, I think I don't. Because what's much more important, not much more important, what is important is to find out what is going on in ourselves without judgment, without condemnation or fault-finding, which seems tremendously difficult for human beings like you and me who've grown up from tiny babies, toddlers, little children, very helpless and often considered more helpless than we actually were, more stupid than we actually are as children. A constant barrage having come at us of don't do this, do that, do it this way, don't do it that way, this is good and this is bad. I've told you so many times, why don't you listen? You're not listening. Yes, this has pounded out a certain defensive, protective way of listening. And not just defensive and protective, also don't know to do any differently. The program evolves out of all of these influences. To assume we've done something wrong, to assume we're told to do better, particularly on a Sunday morning in a hall. The church bells have already rung. Somebody's sitting in front of a group of people. Of course, the mind expects, even not consciously, unconsciously, to be told what's right and wrong, blameworthy and praiseworthy, and so on. Can one become aware of that? It's so hard, because how can one become aware of a set way of listening? Sometimes the only way to become aware is to come into a meeting and say, yesterday when you said to drop images in the talk, I said, I didn't say that. Of course, a person may say, well, you're just not sticking to what you said. You said that. Maybe if I say I wouldn't say that, but why are you so defensive of what you say? It can go on and on and on. So can we both meaning all of us, be open to the high probability that we're listening with a program in a conditioned way, and yet that it is altogether possible to have insight into that, for that to crack open in the light or energy of awareness, so that the sound of the crow or the sound of somebody saying something and the content of the words are recorded quite accurately, heard quite accurately. Accurately meaning the silence or the quietness, the relative inactivity of the program. Because energy is gathered in listening, simply, naively, innocently, which is not easy to come by. And yet it is possible for human beings that energy gathers in a listening which is not hooked up to all the programs, which distort it. The programs distort the listening. They narrow it, they send it through certain channels. So what we're asking of ourselves is not only can we listen and speak accurately, the same goes for speaking as for listening, because speaking goes along very conditioned channels, so that most of the time, or a lot of the time, we don't see what we're saying. We mean something else, but other words come out and we don't notice the discrepancy, because we think we know what we're saying, but we don't hear what we're saying. And that's why all the misunderstandings exist between us, as individuals, as groups, as nations. So, how accurately can we speak/listen? That takes space and time. Time meaning no pressure of time. I got to get this said. I got to get through it. I have to watch that. I often talk quickly and too many things one after another. It's very helpful to have pauses, because the question is not only how accurately can we speak and listen, accurately meaning to really look at what we want to say and then say it in accurate terms, or really listen to what is said and not the distorting influence of programs. And that's not all we're asking. We're also asking, can there be listening openly, not just to the words, with an engaged intellect, which immediately associates words with established meanings, conventional meanings, and then associates it with all kinds of past experiences, knowledge. That's all very narrow and confined listening. We're asking whether it's possible to listen to what is being said and look at the same time, an opening up of this whole organism. Someone says, Most of the time we're listening with a program that directs and narrows the listening according to certain habitual channels. I have to do this, I shouldn't do this. I'm right, I'm wrong. Can we also look whether this is so? Not buy it. This is not sales talk. It's an invitation for all of us to open up alone and together and look at ourselves. Because what is talked about is general and applies to all of us. For each one of us, a specific coloration. All have been brought up a little bit differently. All have had different experiences, but fundamentally they're the same. We grew up helplessly, in need of being told without having a language and learning a language. Learning to use that language in certain very habitual ways. And thoroughly habituated to being sermonized, told what's right and wrong. Can we look? Can we see it when it happens? Sometimes we may even be afraid to listen. Maybe there are people here who don't quite want to listen already for fear of what blame is going to come at them. Or what demands to drop the ego. Or to be selfless. Have we already come with such expectations? And a fear? I want to really hear about this because I don't know whether I can do it and I don't know whether I want to do it. What would I be without an ego or a self? Such questions have already come up. Fear of being nothing. So how openly can we listen this morning to a talk that is not prepared? It comes out of this meeting here. Openly listening and aware that there may not be open listening, there may be a fear lurking, or a compulsion, or a habitual expectation to be told, or wanting to be told. It's another one of our programs. We want to be told what's right and wrong, and what to do and what not to do, so we can remain children under the illusion of parents who know, who are experts, who are wise. But ultimately we're all just children passing on programs in this kind of a state. There's another state of becoming aware of programs. And then it isn't passed on so easily, so facilely. Then there may be questioning what is happening. Not knowing what to say, but realizing this is just habit and indoctrination. The results of habit and indoctrination being passed on or heard. So how subtly and sensitively, in a silent retreat, in a beautiful environment, can a human being listen? And look at the same time whether what is said can be seen in oneself, either now or through memory, which provides memories. It can be a very helpful aspect of this mind. It can provide information about what was. albeit what was may not have been accurately recorded, because the memory can never be more accurate than our perception at the moment, which is not so very accurate as we've just tried to unfold. So this moment of listening, it's not just the words that are being spoken, there are bird calls. It's an airplane. Some movements of people, changing postures. There's the breathing going on. Humming of insects. The heart is beating. One may not be used to listening to it, but it is beating. It is perceptible. Bumping into the glass of an insect. Motor, birds, breathing, physical sensations of comfort or discomfort. Pressure maybe someplace on the chest or in the intestines, in the back, in the head. Can that all be listened to? And by listening, I mean perceived openly, without needing to know too much about it. The knowing apparatus kicks in so quickly. What kind of birds are these? Oh, these are crows, maybe baby crows. That's the brain, part of the brain, providing interpretation and knowledge. Can that be heard or felt kicking in as soon as a sound is heard? Not exactly instantly, as some time lapse between the perception and the interpretation. But realizing that the word crow or baby crows or calling, bird calling, those words, and maybe visualizing birds in the mind, that aren't exactly what is happening. It's not the reality of this, I can't do it very well. And can we listen again, anew for a second time, anew for a third time, not get bogged down by the thoughts? People tell me this, I can't do it, because all I hear is words. Well, it's not true. There wouldn't be the word crow if there wasn't the sound perceived. But I can't hear without the word. Such statements, such convictions about our inabilities, incapacities, are a tremendous blockage. And is it possible to put that on hold, all of our assumptions of what we can't do or should do, and just walk freer without so many assumptions? That may be possible for others, but not for me. I've tried it for 10 years and it hasn't worked. All right, what happened for the last 10 years isn't what's happening now. What is happening now? And then to wonder. And in that openness of wondering and realizing it's not the past 10 years, it's now. What's going on? Sounds and words. And depending on the quality of the words, there's an impact. If the feeling is, I hate the sound of those crows, can't stand them, why couldn't there be nightingales? That judgment has an effect on the body, very noticeable. Hatred or aversion, disgust, or frustration affects this body tremendously. Triggering all kinds of chemicals which affect the organs and the glands and the muscles, the digestive system. We have the notion that if we purge ourselves through fasting diets of toxins, that's the theory, maybe it's the actuality, then we will walk more lightly, purified, cleansed. What about the toxins created by thoughts? I hate this. It's just our habitually negative way of thinking about ourselves and each other. Now, I'm not saying don't think negatively about yourself. We do. And if we do, can we become aware of it and the effect on the body? And a body affected by negative thoughts spawns the feelings that arise, the sensations, the organismic feelings and sensations that arise from negative thoughts give rise to more negative thoughts. Hating the way one feels and not feeling good and hating the way one feels, this is conveyed in our relationship with each other. Can that come into light of awareness without judgment, without condemnation? Because if judgment and condemnation looms, again, as a habitual expectation, we won't even look at something. Maybe that's why we don't see things about ourselves, because we are afraid of condemnation for what we see. So better not look. So it becomes quite clear how important it is to listen and look and attend and catch the condemnation that's about to come up or has just come up, and question whether the looking and listening can happen without that, free from condemnation. And it can if the condemnation is caught every time it arises habitually. Then it loses its power in the light of intelligent awareness or intelligent attending. Because that seems to be the quality of awareness, to be intelligent, not judgmental, but throwing light on this causing that and that resulting in that. And why do that, or why engage in that? It doesn't say don't, it just questions it all. The way we think and affect, the way the thoughts affect the body, and the body affects the thoughts, and how little awareness there is of it. Because when there is a moment awareness, there is a tremendous relief. Not because such beautiful things are seen or come into view, but because something is cracking open to let in light and air on whatever is there. Negativity, positivity, it doesn't matter. What matters is the light and the air. The directness of seeing or listening. And in that directness, the judging aspect of the brain, or the interpreting aspect, may be quiet. It's not energized. The program is not being called up. Because the energy is here, looking, listening, seeing what's there. The way the body feels. It's only little by little that people like ourselves, having grown up in Western civilization, influence of really certain religions downgrading the body, the physical being rather of the devil than of God, to really come in touch with the physical, the feelings, the emotions, the sensations, the repressions, and the pressure against the dams of control. And of course the question immediately arising, how can I get rid of all of this? Give me a diet. There's no diet, there's only moment-to-moment seeing. And over again. Not how much longer, how many more years will I have to see to be rid of all of this dross? I don't know. As long as life lasts. Something may come up that was not seen and that held the body in cramps and under pressure, preventing it from functioning in a relaxed, free way, which it is designed to do. So in all of what has been said so far this morning, do you feel that there is the voice of authority speaking? I don't speak as an authority. I'm just looking at what's happening in a human being. And human beings represent each other. I'm not saying this is true, believe me, repeat my words, follow the advice which I'm not even giving. Is one hearing it that way? Is one making an authority out of Toni? Or has already? And it's happening, it's going on. Can you look right now? Is there imagery of Toni? To see it as it happens, as it's there in place or about to come up. It's wonderful to see those things as they happen, because then they can lose their controlling power. If it's really seen as just an image. And an image is not the real person. The real person is totally, absolutely undefinable. Not capturable in a word or designation, label. So can it clarify little by little or suddenly that it's not authority speaking, but exposing and inviting to look together at what's happening in this human being, conditioned not just through one's own lifetime of years, but century after century, throughout all the past history and prehistory. The result of all of that is sitting here looking and listening. momentous amount of habits having built up, not just in one human being, but everywhere. Nature and universe were told these days as an expression of habit, albeit with the probability of something new happening at any time, creative at any moment, potentially creative, maybe actually. So if there is some feeling for this, some insight into that what is being said here does not come from authority, even though by habit sometimes the voice may sound authoritative. It's the intensity and energy which comes up to say things which may make it sound authoritative. But that's the last thing I mean to do to ourselves, to myself and each other, to create authority. Because authority blinds. It does not reveal. It hides. Believe me or follow me is not the same as let's look together, let's question together, openly, easily. And that's what we do also in group meetings and individual meetings. Listening to each other, not just jumping on each other, interrupting each other. Listening to what someone says and to all the reactions that come up in oneself. But where's authority in that? It's just the actuality of revealing oneself to oneself and to each other in a new, non-judgmental way. Is that possible? We can try out, we can find out. One person says, yes, it's possible. But if it's not possible for someone else, why not? Let's look at it. What's in the way? Why all these judgments which hide? Is there attachment, identity with judging? One person mentioned that in a meeting. I realize I glean satisfaction from judging others. It's very arrogant, but it gives power. I become somebody. Now there's insight into what happens. Not just saying, well, I'm hopelessly judgmental. Well, why? And I don't mean just an abstract explanation, but watching it. As judgment after judgment takes place of others, what goes on inside? Does one feel a little bit more worthy because one is able to judge someone else? We create, or this mind creates itself, space platform after space platform, to be sitting on, to be somebody, to have a vantage point, for fear of being nothing or drowning in nothingness, which is all assumption and idea, has nothing to do with reality. No one has ever drowned when there was no opinion. You come to life. Compassionately watching maybe how opinionated human beings are at each other's throats. So what is our relationship with each other? Not just you and me, but with each other. Can we look at that from moment to moment? One of distance, separation, because of inferiority or superiority images. Or maybe for moments, imagery dropping away, and there you can't even say there's a relationship. There we are. We're not even related. We're there, all of us, together. Not me and you, but we're there, as we are at this moment. Habit-bound as well as free to discover habit. And in that there's no hierarchy, no advanced or retarded. It's so hard to fathom for this progress conditioned mind, progress, success with its failures. So hard to fathom that we don't need to be anything. Which doesn't mean stay in bed all day long. That doesn't resolve the problem of being or not being. Doing, working, doing whatever needs to be done, but not needing to become someone in the process. Then maybe for the first time, the work will be there immediately, felt, touched, sensed, appreciated in a new way, in a non-distracting way. But distracting, I mean, it's just feeding the self-image. By which I'm not condemning feeding the self-image. It happens in all of us. It can be seen, though, and lose its power. Maybe in the beginning just for a moment, but it can be seen over and over and over. And it loses its importance. Because it's seen for its blindness and narrowness and isolation. In a world where we also yearn to be in relationship with each other in a loving way. We will end here for today.